Welcome back to Half the Battle. I'm your host, as always, Daniel Levy, your guest co-host, Mike Narco Cop Yunin. Today, we're going to be talking about UFC Singapore, Max Holloway versus the Korean Zombie. And Mike, it's going down this Saturday morning live at the Singapore Indoor Stadium in Singapore. You got two legends in the main event. Obviously, Max Holloway, the former UFC featherweight champion, the output king, taking on Jung, the Korean Zombie, the man who has one of the best brawls of all time against Leonard Garcia, the man with the fastest knockout in UFC history against Mark Hominick, the man with the first ever twister in UFC history in the rematch against Leonard Garcia, and two-time title challenger, no less, Korean Zombie. And it's nice to see two legends, the last of a dying breed, going at it. And despite the wide line, I'm very excited for this main event.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. First off, Dan. 2 o'clock card, 2 a.m. my time. It's gonna be pretty rough, but I'm gonna be there watching this card, having some probably bets on it, and yeah, I can't wait for the main event, man. It's a wide line, but two goats over here, man. Two really good fighters, good all around fighters, and I'm really interested in actually some of these fights on this card.
Well, without further ado, Mike, let's get right down to business, because in the main event, we got Max Holloway. He's 24-7, taking on the Korean Zombie, who's 17-7. And currently, they got it Max Holloway minus 800. The comeback on the Korean Zombie is plus 550. So is it recency bias where, Korean Zombie was coming off that bad performance against Volkanovski? Because, I mean, look, both of them got, owned by Volkanovski. It wasn't just the Korean Zombie. And don't get me wrong, Max Holloway would still be a favorite no matter what. But my question is, would he be more towards, a minus 400 favorite instead of a minus 800 favorite had, Jung's last memory, not been that Volkanovski fight?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it would be. I mean, there is some recency bias baked in this line, and we see it all the time in MMA. I mean, it happens over and over and over again. And the problem is, it's like, what's the path for Korean Zombie here? Like, is he gonna outstrike Max Holloway? What's the plan here? And kind of have an issue, over 5 rounds here. Max Holloway is gonna come out with crazy output like usual. He looked pretty damn good in his last fight against the title challenger in Arnold Allen, who was really flying up the ranks, and here we are now, and Korean Zombie took an absolute beating, and that's a slight concern for me. Like, at the age that he's at, 36 years old now, taking a beating like that against Volkanovski, I mean, that was 4 rounds of absolute beating. And now the issue I have here is he's facing a guy that is going to do kind of like similar things, in the sense that he's going to throw a ton of volume. He's going to keep coming, and just don't want to see Korean Zombie getting a beating like that again. Obviously, Volkanovski, I think, is a much harder hitter. He's a lot more dangerous than Max Holloway, but still, man, the volume catches up to you over 5 rounds. It's hard for me to see a path for Korean Zombie here, to be honest. 36 years old. I mean, he's still a great fighter, but I think it's kind of coming to an end, in my opinion. So yeah, I like Max Holloway here. Just not gonna lay these type of prices, in MMA, especially with two guys that are very skilled at the end of the day. So yeah, I mean, Max Holloway, I think, wins here probably by decision.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that if Zombie tries to go volume for volume with Max, it's gonna look a lot worse than it could, should he do what I think he's gonna do, which is let Max be the volume guy, and Jung needs to be the counter guy. He needs to be able to come out here and counter Max Holloway with big power strikes, because listen, for all the output Max has, he does get hit a lot. Like, we know that there was a number that came out recently of how many head strikes he's absorbed over his career, and it's a lot. So Sung, I mean, this is his best path to victory is a counter striking, power punching approach. Like, maybe you can be the first guy to finally crack that chin of Max Holloway. Like, because I don't think you're going to match him on output. I mean, according to the numbers, he's got no chance to match him on output. Zombies only landed over 100 significant strikes a few times, whereas Max, I mean, the numbers he put up against Cater, let's not even talk about that yet. Let's talk about the numbers he put up against Yair. The numbers he put up against Yair were better than any numbers Zombies ever put up in any fight he's had before, 230 significant strikes. But against Cater, he put up 445. That was just ridiculous. And while Zombies passed the 100 significant strike threshold, he's never gotten to 150, let alone 200, let alone 400, damn near 450 like Max Holloway, right? So it has to be, you know, him. Chan Sung winning is contingent on power punching counters. And I think that's it. I haven't really factored how they stack up grappling because I think Max is kind of underrated on the mat, but so is Chan Sung Jung. I mean, first ever twister in UFC history. The guy can hit takedowns, and we have to give this guy his flowers, man. I mean, some of the best fights in the history of the sport. If you're watching my podcast and you've never seen Korean Zombie versus Leonard Garcia 1 at WEC 48, I highly advise you pause this right now, either pull up Fight Pass or go to YouTube and watch that fight. It's literally the best brawl of all time. It's just 15 minutes of toe-to-toe just action. Just, yeah, it's such a good fight. And then he's given us more fight of the years. A fight of the year against Dustin Poirier, a fight of the year against Yair Rodriguez, fastest knockout in UFC history. Like I said, 2-time title challenger. So I know some of the newer fans, you know, don't appreciate Zombie as much as they should, but the guy is a certified legend. He is a certified BMF, and there's a reason Max Holloway asked for this fight, because he wanted to fight the last remaining dude from the old school era. You know, Max has already fought the Cub Swansons, the Frankie Edgars, Dustin Poirier, et cetera, but he's never fought the Korean Zombie. So that's why this fight is happening. And you can't just rush Max to a 4th title shot, right? Like, he's already been in there with Volk 3 times. Only one of them was kind of, you know, iffy, the second fight. But the first I thought was clearly Volk, even though it was kind of, you know, tighter than the third. The third was a fucking destruction. So you got to get Max Holloway back on a win streak. He just beat, like you said, a kid who was on his way to a title shot in Arnold Allen. You parlay that with a win over Chan Sung Jung and 1 or 2 more, and you could see that 4th fight. So, yeah, I mean, the volume is going to be huge here. I'm just curious to see what approach Chan Sung comes out with. But like you said, it's not just a matter of opinion that the Korean Zombie's, you know, unfortunately on his way out. He even said it after the Volk fight. He said, you know, maybe I just don't have it anymore. And in addition to that, when fighters say that and you mix it in with he's coming off the title fight loss, you know, it's every fighter's dream to be a world champion. And when that dream gets crushed, they tend to have kind of like a drop down performance the next time. So this might be the last time we see the legendary Korean Zombie. And if it is, man, you know, I will shed a tear because that guy is a legend. That guy is someone that I've looked up to just as a fan of the sport. And same with Max Holloway too. But I think Max Holloway obviously has more tread on the tires. So in a long-winded way, I'm picking the minus 800 favorite here to come out. I don't know if it's to come out victorious. I don't know if it's going to be a decision or a TKO, but Max is the pick. Co-main event of the evening. We got a rematch. We got Anthony Smith. He's 36-18, taking on Ryan Spann, who was 21-8. Currently, they got it. Anthony Smith minus 125. The comeback on, I said Ryan Spann minus 125, right? The comeback on Anthony Smith is plus 110. Let me ask you something. Who do you think's been finished more times in their career? Anthony Smith or Ryan Spann?
I would take a guess. I don't even know off the top of my head, to be honest. I would say Ryan Spann. He's just like a kill or be killed type of fighter. So I'm just taking a guess.
He is a kill or be killed fighter. But the reason I asked that is because our memory makes us think it's Ryan Spann, because every time this guy gets touched, he gets wobbled. And he's a front runner. He's a fucking athletic specimen front runner, but he's a front runner no less. But he's only got 6 stoppage losses. Anthony Smith has, listen to this, 14 stoppage losses. Now, granted, A lot of them were back in the day and in different weight classes. But he used to cut a lot of weight and he used to get knocked out like every other fight. Anthony Smith has been stopped via strikes 9 times. The thing is, once he moved up to 205, he only got stopped once against Magomed Ankalaev, and it was, injury stoppage, right? Well, that's not true. Glover Teixeira did as well. But that being said, and you remember the Thiago Marreta Santos fight back at 85s. So it's not like Anthony Smith hasn't been stopped his fair share of times is basically the reason I asked you that to begin with. This is a tough one for me to call, man, because it's like, if you just watch their first fight, Anthony put it on him. Anthony owned him. Anytime Anthony would touch Ryan Spann, it hurt Ryan Spann badly. Anytime anyone touches Ryan Spann, it hurts Ryan Spann badly. And again, if you kind of stand up to the bully, Ryan Spann, he's like a head case, man. Like, he's the kind of dude that is fighting in a UFC co-main event, but will set all his social media handles on private, right? He's a big time head case. But man, he's an athletic specimen. And from time to time, he will surprise you. Like the Dominic Reyes fight. I know it's easy to say now, oh, Dominic is washed up goods, which is facts. He is, he is damaged goods. But like, Ryan Spann was a plus 180 dog in that fight, right? And he got him out of there quicker than Yuri, quicker than Jan Blachowicz. Granted, all the damage added up leading up to that point, but still, he got him out of there faster than all those guys. The Iwan Kutalaba fight got him out of there quick. I mean, sometimes even the Johnny Walker fight, man, he had Johnny on the ropes before he did something he's done 3 times before, Mike, which is Ryan Spann has been finished by knockout the exact same way 3 times, which is shooting a sloppy shot and getting caught with those Travis Brown elbows to the ear, to the temple, maybe to the back of the head, but the ref didn't call it, So when you've been stopped the same way 3 times, and you hear his coach, Saif Saud, who, I mean, I got so much respect for, as soon as Ryan Spann took that sloppy shot, you could hear Saif in the corner, get out of there, because he knew exactly what was coming. So here, it's one of those things where I know why people are picking Anthony. I mean, he's a dog. He won the first time, all that. But, man, coming back from a leg break, guys don't often look the same. Look at Weidman the other day. Look at Anderson when he came back. When Connor comes back, he will be faded too. That Johnny Walker fight against Anthony, I was at that fight. It was in Charlotte. Anthony looked fucking terrible, dude. And that fight could have been stopped, but Johnny was kind of playing with his food a little bit. I don't trust either guy. I don't know. Can you convince me on a side here?
Yeah, I agree with you in a lot of senses here. Like, the line's basically almost at pick'em here. In the first fight, like Anthony Smith completely dominated this guy. And the thought is here, after watching that fight, why is this line currently where it is, right? Because we've basically watched almost, what is it, half a round of this fight, and one guy was in complete domination of this fight, whether it be standing or grappling, So, it gave me pause here because I was kind of on the Anthony Smith side. But then I kind of dug a little deeper and I said to myself, Anthony Smith looked absolutely horrible in his last fight. You're absolutely correct, against Johnny Walker. But I think part of the problem was he got his legs chopped off. I mean, getting your legs chopped off, he didn't have limbs to stand on, to be honest. And he was fighting with one leg for almost 2 rounds of that fight. I went back and looked to see if Ryan Spann actually kicks the legs, kicks the calves, because I have a big concern for Anthony Smith there. He just doesn't check him. He doesn't know how to check him. He gets his leg chopped off in a lot of these fights where guys can kick him. And Anthony Spann literally throws 0 kicks, man, like none. And I was kind of surprised because I thought he had a kickboxing background, but he really doesn't throw any freaking kicks in MMA at all. So, when I went back and looked and I said to myself, you know what, it's even money. One guy here is very, very front-loaded in Ryan Spann. He probably needs to finish this early. And if he doesn't finish early, he just doesn't have cardio. He falls off a cliff. He's not technically better than Anthony Smith is. I think Anthony Smith is better everywhere, in my opinion, here, outside of the power. The sheer power, the sheer athleticism is definitely on Ryan Spann's side. But outside of that, I just see so many advantages for Anthony Smith. And one of them, I think, is cardio. Because I think if this fight clearly goes into round 2 or round 3, he's going to have a big cardio edge here and a big experience edge as well in the later rounds. So I took the plus 110 here. There is concerns, like you said. But, one of the major concerns, I think, for Anthony Smith is that calf kick, leg kick. And Ryan Spann just doesn't seem to do him. And I also do think his fight IQ is a little shaky.
Yeah. I mean, listen, I'm going to be rooting for you because you took Anthony in the spot. I want to see you win, and I don't have money on this. I don't even have a confident pick on this because realistically, I could see it going either way. Like, I hear the arguments of the durability of Smith, but at what point does that finally go, man? I mean, the way he's been looking is awful. And not that Spann's been looking much better, but like from time to time, when you count Spann out, that's when he'll surprise you. And like you said, his only advantages are just kind of, he's black explosive. You know what I mean? He's an athletic freak. I'm gonna go Ryan Spann to catch him early and just get him out of there, kind of a front running, loaded victory where he doesn't have to overcome any adversity. Because a lot of Anthony Smith's wins are kind of predicated on comebacks, minus the last time he fought Ryan Spann. But no two fights are ever alike. So I hope you're right. I want to see you win, but I'll pick Ryan so that one of us is right. Now, featured bout in the featherweight division, we got the long-awaited return of Giga Chikadze. He's been gone since the Cater fight. He's 14-3, taking on Bruce Leroy, Alex Caceres, who's 21-13. Currently, they got it. Giga Chikadze minus 240. The comeback on Bruce Leroy is plus 200. So on one hand, it's kind of sketchy that Giga's been gone for so long. Allegedly, I don't know if this is hyperbole and exaggeration, but allegedly he's had like 5 surgeries. I don't know if that's true or not. Like, that's what he said, but talk is cheap, right? But on the other side of things, this is kind of a good fight to come back to. This is kind of, this ain't a top 5 guy like Calvin Kattar anymore. This is, I mean, don't get me wrong, Bruce Leroy is not an easy fight, but I'm just saying, you were fighting the Barbosas, the Caters. This is kind of a step back. Still a seasoned vet, no less. And there's definitely spots we don't want Giga, and we don't want Alex Caceres taking his back. We don't want, prolonged, exchanges where it becomes kind of like who's got the better cardio, because we know Giga's a big time gasser. But what do you kind of think here? What are your expectations for Giga here, coming off a severe beating, long layoff, alleged, X amount of surgeries, but no less a step down in competition?
Yeah, I mean, major step down in competition. And I like Alex Caceres. I think he's a wily vet. He's decent everywhere. He's pretty durable, good jujitsu. And as a long guy, right? He has very long limbs. Can make it tricky on you. He has that karate style in and out, switching stances. So he's a little hard to deal with. And then on the Giga side, this guy's been gone, like you said, for a while. I didn't even know about this 5 surgery thing. And like you said, we don't know how true it is. That's what he says. But, the Calvin Kattar fight, honestly, early on, it was pretty damn competitive in round 1 and 2. I think Kattar started taking over as Giga started to slow down. And part of the slowing down, I think, is because of the Calvin Kattar pressure, right? Lots of volume, lots of pressure. He will keep coming. He's got a granite chin. I mean, the guy got clipped by Giga with some huge straight left hands. And Giga has a lot of power in his hands along with his legs. But, he took him like nothing. And Kattar has a very, very good chin. I'm not so sure Caceres can take those shots. He was dropped, I believe, by Sung Woo Choi in that fight before Sung Woo Choi decided to go for a grounded knee, which, who knows what that would have been. Maybe he would have stopped Caceres there because he was hurt pretty damn bad. But, outside of that, I just, Caceres, does obviously have a grappling edge here. The issue I have is when you go back and look at Caceres' career, outside of like maybe 7 years ago, the guy doesn't even have more than one takedown in the UFC. Giga's takedown defense is not terrible, and he's not like a complete fish out of the water. When he's on the ground, he tends to get back up. On the feet, man, it's just, for me, it's like the power advantage is so one-sided here, and like you mentioned, the drop down in competition, when you go from a striker like Barbosa and a guy like Cater, and then now you're fighting a guy in Caceres who I don't really think has a lot of power in his hands. I mean, albeit he's long and he has, okay power, I would say, but nothing that's coming back that's really dangerous. So I think this is a good comeback fight for Giga. Do I want to lay minus 250s and 275s on Giga after a year and a half? Not really, because there is still a little bit of concern in the grappling. Like, if Caceres gets his back, it's going to be a little shaky because the guy's very long, good BJJ, like I said. So don't really want to touch the money line here. But if I have to pick a winner, I think Giga probably cruises to a victory here. Could even be a knockout.
Yeah, and I think where things went downhill in the Cater fight was Cater mixed it up, hit a very explosive takedown where he kind of bulldozed Chikadze into the fence, used that momentum against him and got him down. And once Chikadze was on his back, now granted he survived, but like when he got back up, he just wasn't the same guy anymore. All like his energy meter was just completely drained, man. It was crazy. Here, Bruce Leroy doesn't have that kind of pressure. And you mentioned how Alex is a longer guy, which is a very good point. Like, for the standard of that division, he is a longer guy, but Giga's even longer than Alex. Giga's got the height and reach here. He usually succeeds in those kind of situations. Don't forget about his devastating liver kick, monikered the Giga kick, which is really just a liver kick, especially when you're standing southpaw against an orthodox fighter. But I guess what makes this kind of interesting is that Alex is the southpaw here. And Giga does switch, but Giga is mostly orthodox. So I'm curious if that liver kick's going to actually be open here based on how they stand. For it to be open, Giga's going to have to go southpaw on him. So that's going to make it really intriguing. Let's see if he comes out here and tries to switch stances. And I could just totally see it. Like, if he doesn't knock out Caceres, I could see the first two going to Giga, and I could see a very sketchy round in round 3. And again, Bruce Leroy takes his back. We don't know what to expect there either. So I'm good on this price. It's a pass for me, but my pick is Giga Chikadze to get back on track. Hopefully he's the same guy,
Yeah, I mean, I love his fights. I mean, he's an exciting fighter, but 5 surgeries later, who knows?
Next up in the bantamweight division, we got the Japanese prospect Rinya Nakamura. He's 7-0, taking on Fernie Garcia, who's 10-3. And currently, just like the Holloway line, Nakamura is minus 800. The comeback on Fernie is plus 550. I'll give Fernie a little bit of credit. He does have heavy hands. He landed a knockdown on his Contender Series fight. Rocked. I think he might have rocked Brady Heastan at one point in their fight.
Dropped him, in round 1. They didn't give him credit, I think.
Yeah, they didn't give him credit. Besides that, though, the output is on the very low side. I'll give him one more credit. Trains under Coach Saif Saud. But the thing is, Coach Saif Saud can't fight for you, But if Coach Saif Saud had the video game controller, that'd be one thing, right? But just Fernie, he's got heavy hands, but that's about it. He's tough, but he struggles to get back up from bottom. His output is so low. And with Rinya, what's interesting is, we kind of know him as this knockout artist, but really he's got this wrestling background, right? And that's why I think he's such a big favorite here. Like, he can bang with Fernie if he wants to. That might actually give Fernie the chance to win. But, Rinya's got big power. I mean, his last 2 fights, He got 2 knockdowns in each of them and slept both those guys badly. But push comes to shove. Maybe he doesn't like how the stand-up exchanges are going. He can always resort back to his wrestling. And that's why he's this wide of a favorite. Not to mention, it's closer to home territory for him than it is for Fernie making an insane flight, right? And there's going to be other situations on the card like that, but with guys not as talented as Rinya. I think Rinya is one of the better Japanese prospects, and you know, I'm picking him to win here. It's just the question is knockout, submission, or decision.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, he's a very, very, very high level wrestler. I mean, this guy is Olympic level wrestling. You know, he's really, really good in the wrestling, but for whatever reason, he loves to bang it out in a lot of his fights. Like, he is coming at first, slugging it out. And he has a ton of power as well on the feet. Like you said, he's sleeping these guys with one shot, you know, when he's landing. Fernie Garcia, you know, I mentioned this when you looked at his career, right? He got the knockout in Contender Series, and I played him by KO there at a big line. And when you look at his historically, like, there's no knockouts. You know, he doesn't have any knockouts. But when you watch his tape, he's dropping a lot of guys with his shots because he clearly does have power in his hands. It's just that the finishing ability just doesn't seem there, like the finishing instincts. But like you mentioned, you know, this guy has a boxing background. He's a pretty damn good boxer. He's not bad on the feet. On the ground is where he's a liability. You know, he's getting taken down. He's getting held down. Brady did it a bunch against him. Basically, minutes were washed away with him on the ground. He was trying to work. It's just that he's not very good down there. You know, he's like I said, he's a boxing background. He's probably kind of new to jiu-jitsu. I don't know how many years he's been doing it, but he's not very good down there. And that's where Rinya, to be honest, is best, right? He's best on the ground. Who cares about the knockouts? His bread and butter is the wrestling. That's his background. That's where he's great at. And that's probably where Fernie Garcia is going to have a lot of trouble. On the feet, I will say, I don't like what Nakamura does. Honestly, he gets clipped a whole hell of a lot. And when you watch the Nosey fight, the Shio Nosey, he rocks him 2 different times in that fight, Nakamura. He wobbles him backwards 2 different times in that fight, which is not a good look to see. You don't want to see that from a guy that's a wrestler standing there and trading with someone like Fernie, who's an actual boxer, you know? So I'm very close to taking a poke on Fernie Garcia, believe it or not. Because I think this Nakamura guy just loves to slug it out, and he's going to give Fernie this chance to clip him. And I see him get clipped. I mean, even Kazama in the last fight hit him, clipped him a couple of times on the feet. So it's a concern for me that he's trying to like trade on the feet a lot. Maybe trying to make a point. I don't know. But I'm a little interested in Fernie Garcia at these ridiculous prices now. You know, obviously, I think Nakamura wins the fight, but we're talking about money line, and we're talking about a guy that's not very experienced in MMA, is, you know, minus 850 here, and is tend to fall in love with his striking, man. We heard Gregory Rodriguez last week say on his interview, I'm a black belt in BJJ. I'm very good on the ground. And I fell in love with striking after I started knocking people out. And this guy, I feel like, is getting the same love for knocking people out. And that's why he comes forward banging now. So who knows? You know, he should win for sure here because he has that wrestling in his back pocket. But I feel like Garcia's live on the feet, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, the price is terrible. So, you know, dog or pass. Next up in the flyweight division, this should be very good, Mike. We got Erin Blanchfield. She's 11-1, arguably 12-0, taking on Taila Santos, who's 19-2. Currently, they got it. Erin Blanchfield minus 145. The comeback on Taila Santos is plus 125. So Erin's come through for me a couple times, you know, against Miranda Maverick at plus 125, against Jessica Andrade at plus 160. But plus 125 and plus 160 are different than minus 145, you know? And here's the kind of dynamic in this fight. I see Taila Santos kind of being the more physical fighter in the spot. I mean, she is. That's not a debate. She is definitely the more physical fighter, but I think Erin Blanchfield's kind of the meaner fighter here. She kind of like doesn't take no for an answer. She might not be the most athletic, but she's mean and she goes forward and she's tough as hell. And she's like one of those like kid prodigies. Like she got like her black belt when she was like a teenager, right? So it is a situation where although Taila's also a black belt, I'm pretty damn sure. I mean, brown belt at least, but I think she's probably a black belt. Erin is that good where like if she gets Taila in those situations that Valentina had her in, Erin can finish the fight there. I'm just worried about the physicality in the early going, kind of stifling Erin, kind of, frustrating her a bit. But I do think eventually that mean streak of Erin is going to carry her over in the second and third rounds, assuming the fight goes all three, potentially a submission along the way. It's just, I'm not interested at this price. I think the price is probably accurate. Again, against Miranda, it was plus 125. Against Jessica, it was plus 160. Here it's minus 145, minus 150. And it's probably accurate here, unless you really think that Erin is just going to walk, it's going to be a walk through the park and minus, like she should be minus 250. I definitely think she should be favored. I just don't necessarily know if there's much value on the line. So for me, it's a pass, but my pick is Erin Blanchfield.
Yeah, I agree with all your points here, man. When you look at Taila Santos, she's a physical specimen. I do have a question for you though, and I heard this I think a day or two ago, but Taila Santos has something going on with her camp, I guess, where she didn't pay them, so they kicked her out of her camp. I don't know how accurate that is, but that's what I've been hearing. Something happened with her last fight against Shevchenko where she didn't pay her coaches or something happened. I'm not sure.
She probably got the most money she's ever made in a fight and was like, we didn't win. What the fuck am I going to pay you for? That's fucked up.
And I think it's pretty accurate because I don't see her training in her old gym. So I don't know what's going on there. So it's a little bit of a concern. But, when you mention physicality, she's strong. She's going to be the bigger girl. She's going to be the better striker. She's going to have more power on the feet. But you hit it on the head. Like Blanchfield's one of those fighters that no matter what you do to her, she's going to keep coming forward. She's going to keep trying to do what she has to do to get you down. And then when she gets you down, she's going to punish you. She's going to do whatever she can to finish the fight. She just has kind of like, when you look at her, you don't see it, but she has a mean streak. She really does. And, as this fight carries on, maybe not in round one, but possibly in round 2 and 3, I think that's when the grind starts working for her, because when you watch round 1 of the Andrade fight, she had trouble. Like she couldn't get Andrade down. She was getting hit a little on the feet, even though her striking looks much better. She was getting hit on the feet. And, you could see the physicality of Andrade kind of working for her early, right? She was getting off the fence. She was kind of bullying her around when they were trying to, get in a clinch. And I kind of feel like the same thing might happen early here with Santos. But I think this girl just doesn't get discouraged, Dan. She just doesn't, man. Whatever you do to her doesn't discourage her. She's going to keep at her game plan. She's going to throw, trying to get you in the clinch and try to, take you down or whatever she needs to do to get you down there. And once you're down there, you mentioned this. She's been a black belt forever. And this girl, and you can look at her Instagram, she lives and breathes this sport, man. She really does. And I think she wins here. I'm close to betting her, but I haven't yet because I do think I kind of agree with you. This line, if this was a 5-round fight,
yes,
man, I would be all over her. I really would.
Well said. Not to cut you off, but I just think that that's such a great point that she's someone that's really going to thrive in those 5-round fights. She's someone that picks up the pace as the fight progresses. And the reason that I think we might be hesitant to take this minus 150, watch her choke her out early, but just saying in an extended fight is, what if that first round goes to Taila? What if that second round's 50-50? What if Erin just dominates that third round? And you're like, man, if we just had 2 more rounds, it'd be without a shadow of a doubt. So I feel where you're coming from. Like I feel you there. And to your credit, her straight punches were looking decent against Andrade. Now Andrade doesn't move her head off the center line, but Erin's performance, just gave me that extra incentive to go a little bit bigger on Yan Xiaonan, who I would have bet anyways, but I went just a little bit bigger because of how much success Erin was having with those straight punches you mentioned.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing that I'm concerned about. She loses round one because Santos is, we saw it against Shevchenko, how strong she is, man. Like Shevchenko is probably one of the strongest girls at 25. And she wasn't having it, man. She was getting on top in some of those sequences where she just looked stronger than Shevchenko early, right? But as the fight went on, what happened to her, right? Shevchenko started dominating, right? She started looking stronger. And I feel like that's what's going to happen here. It's just that we only have 3 rounds. And yeah, I'm probably going to eventually pass on this, honestly. Maybe I'll take some pokes at Blanchfield late here. I think that's something maybe to look at, but I'm probably going to pass overall. But I think Blanchfield wins.
Next up in the heavyweight division, we got Junior Tafa. He's 4-1, taking on Parker Porter, who's 14-8. Currently, they got it. Junior Tafa, similar line to the last fight, -140. The comeback on Parker Porter's +120. Now we know what happened when Parker fought his brother. And let me just say this as well. We also saw what happened in this Tafa's debut. But to give him credit, just like his bro got slept by Yorgan De Castro in his debut. Like, sometimes these fighters will pull what I like to refer to as the debut stunt. You saw it with Taila Santos losing to Mara Romero Barella, who she has 0 business losing to. We're going to talk about this kid coming up named Japanese Connor Kinoshita. Same situation there. So the question is, are you willing to give Tafa a second chance? Or do you think, what happened last time is indicative of what might happen here?
I already gave him a second chance, Dan. I feel like, first off, like the making of this fight is a little weird to me, right? Tafa coming off of a Usman loss, who's not very high up there, and they're giving him, a guy that is kind of a very good matchup, in my opinion, flying all the way cross country, where it's a much shorter flight for Tafa, right? The thing that stuck out to me is the Usman fight was not a great look, right? Early, he had Usman hurt very bad, and Usman was just surviving. I mean, surviving for his life. And even late in the fight, actually, as he went to get up, he nailed Usman with a couple of big shots. What I will say is his cardio is not great, but it's not as bad as I thought it would be, honestly, in a very, very high grappling fight. I just don't think Parker Porter brings that physicality in the grappling that Usman did. Usman, to me, is a better wrestler. He's more physical, and he managed to use his physicality in wrestling to get this fight to the ground. I don't think Parker Porter has that in him. And if this is standing, I think Junior Tafa lights him up on the feet, man, similar to his brother. He's got fast hands. He's got a lot of power in his punches. He's going to be the longer guy here. Like I said, it's a shorter trip here. This guy's coming across country. Parker Porter looked good as far as his weight and his body in his last fight. He was the lowest he's ever been. He looked a lot better. But I mean, what is that going to help him in this fight? Is he going to grapple better? Is he going to be a better wrestler? I just don't see it. I see this fight. And also early on in the takedown defense, I liked actually what Tafa was doing. He was digging underhooks every single time. Usman couldn't get him down early until he got tired, is when he started taking him down. So for me, I think this fight's standing. I think Tafa is the much, much better striker. He's a lot younger. He's way faster. And he's the bigger guy. So I like all of those for a -141. I just think Parker Porter is being fed here to a guy that they want to get a W for, to be honest. So give me Junior Tafa here at -141.
Yeah, I mean, I agree in terms of if this fight stays standing. Junior, I mean, most likely is going to starch this, man. That all that kickboxing experience comes from a family of fighters. They have kind of that Mark Hunt style, explosive left hooks, break away from the clinch with big elbows, heavy leg kicks. The only concern is you can't look me in the eye with a straight face and tell me that if Parker Porter gets on top of Tafa, that you're not concerned that, fuck, man, this guy might not be able to get back up. That's the big concern here, right? Now, I don't think that Junior is anywhere near the can that Parker just fought, that Tony Braxton, I don't think it's anything like that, but he is still green in MMA, but I'm not willing to part ways with my money, but I'm willing to give him another shot in terms of a pure pick. And I'm going to go Junior Tafa here, but we know what the concerns are here. We know exactly what the concerns are. Like, Parker gets on top of him and you can't act surprised, right? Like, you can't act like, like that wasn't a concern, right? So hopefully that doesn't happen. They can keep it standing. And if they do, Tafa might starch him early, or just light him up, until he finally starches him. So I'm gonna go Tafa as well. And I wish you luck on that.
Thanks.
Now, next up, thank you. Next up in the heavyweight division as well, we got Waldo, Cortes, Acosta, 9-1, taking on Lukasz Brzeski, who's 8-3-1. I know the pronunciation police are going to come after me on that Lukasz one, but currently, just depends where you look. I see Waldo everywhere from -225 to upwards of -300. Comeback on Lukasz is everywhere from +189 to +215, right? So, Lukasz is a USADA victim. Go look at his before and after pictures. But I got to give Lukasz some credit, man. Like, a lot of people thought he arguably beat Boudet. What's funny is that I actually was asleep during that fight, because prior to that was the Nina Nunes versus Cynthia Calvillo fight on that card. And that fight put me to sleep, right? And then I wake up and we're at the decision for Lukasz Brzeski and Martin Boudet. And they announced Boudet the winner. And then I go on Twitter and it's this massive uproar. Now, going back and rewatching it, I completely understand why people feel the way they did. I think it might have been slightly exaggerated, but I still understand why people feel the way they did. I mean, there was definitely an output difference. My issue with Brzeski is, just the physique difference after, who knows if he's able to inject needles in his ass for this one. You know what I mean, man? Is he taking his Flintstone vitamins? Is he harvesting the garden of life fruits and vegetables for this one? Because he is a tough guy. Like, even in the Carl fight, he got taken down a bunch, but he got up a bunch. So I got to give him credit. Like, he's going to go for it. He's a scrapper. But Waldo is like a real athlete, man. Waldo, you can tell his baseball background, man. When he throws those overhands, it's like a pitcher throwing a fastball, man. It was important for him to take that De Lima loss against a guy who was much more experienced than him, kind of get a bit of that vet lesson, let him know what the upper echelon, like what the top 15 is like a little bit. And I think this is a good bounce back spot for him. I think he's got a lot more athletic upside. It's still a heavyweight fight, and neither guy is quite proven, so you can't really stamp your flag on it. But again, I do think Waldo is the better athlete. I think he's got the more upside, and I think this is a good bounce back fight for him. So for that reason, Mike, I'm going to pick him to win this fight.
Yeah, I mean, again, I agree with everything you said. I think the problem with Lukasz Brzeski here is, he's fought guys like Boudet, and he looked okay in that fight, and, split decision loss. Some people said he won. But there's a massive difference, honestly, between Boudet's striking and Acosta's striking, right? The hands. Acosta has much better hands, much faster, very, very good jab. That's, I think, the major issue for Brzeski here. Like, I think the jab lands at will for Acosta here. The thing is that Brzeski is tough. He will keep coming forward. One thing to kind of keep an eye on is in the Boudet fight, he did throw a lot of calf kicks, which we've come to realize that, Acosta just cannot do anything with these calf kicks. Like, he gets killed with them fight after fight after fight. And I think that's a pretty good weapon for Brzeski here if he wants to use it. And, this line, I feel like is probably right. I think Acosta wins here a good deal just by striking. I don't think Brzeski has any type of like grappling edge here. I do think Acosta has a decent size cardio edge here as well. So, line's right. I think I might attack a prop here on the Brzeski side. I think Brzeski decision, if you want to look at this guy, I just don't think he has much finishing upside here. I think Acosta is extremely tough, extremely durable. Don't think he's going to knock him out. I don't think he's going to sub him. So the decision prop is sitting at like 425. I kind of lean, I think that's a decent way to attack Brzeski if you like that side, because I think almost all of his equity is in a decision here.
Let me say this regarding the kicks, because you're right. Dude does get kicked a lot, but I got to give him credit. He's got a great poker face. And okay, look at last week, the Ian Gary versus Magny fight. First two kicks drop Magny. Subsequent kicks have Magny making faces, hopping on one leg. This dude Waldo, it's just fucking balls of steel, man. Dude,
Dan, he ate 28 of them from De Lima. De Lima hits those. I mean, his leg kicks are different. You know what I'm saying? To eat 28 of them from that guy, well, you got to be freaking tough.
He's a real athlete, so it's going to be interesting. Next up in the bantamweight division, we got Toshiomi Kazama. He's 10-3, taking on Garrett Armfield, who's 8-3. Currently, they got it. Garrett Armfield minus 175. The comeback on Toshiomi Kazama is plus 150. So I took Armfield at minus 147 a couple days ago. I played him to win 2 units. Here's why. I only have one concern in this fight. And that's Toshiomi subbing him. Toshiomi taking his back, getting on top, whatever the case may be. Toshiomi Kazama is a one-trick pony. He literally tries to he'll come out and slug a little bit, but his chin is terrible. And it's not just the Rinya fight. 2 fights prior, when this guy gets slept, I remember the Jeremy Stevens quote, I don't just something about, I don't just TKO guys. When I knock guys out, I knock them fucking dead. Whatever he said. When this guy gets knocked out, he doesn't just get TKO'd. He gets knocked out dead. That flying knee he ate 2 fights ago, knocked out dead. Against Nakamura in 30 seconds, knocked out dead. And then on the feet, when this guy rushes, because he's got a lot of forward pressure, and when he rushes to that clinch, it's like I'm watching dudes in the jiu-jitsu room. He'll tie up with you, but there's no knees. There's no dirty boxing. There's no elbows. It's just purely just tying up with nothing. And we know what his intent is, to get it to the mat, but I think that Armfield has enough defensive wrestling to keep the standing. On the feet, I think Armfield's a lot faster, a lot more accurate, and just a lot, more technically sound than Kazama. And Armfield, when you look at his 3 losses, they've all aged great. Ronnie Lawrence, there's no shame in that. The next guy he lost to is a 9-1 prospect that's about to fight on Contender Series, whose only loss is a decision loss to Damon Blackshear. And you might look at it and see it says he's 8-2. Actually, he's 8-2 because his other loss, he knocked the dude out with an up kick, and they called, the guy that got knocked out the winner. You guys know how I feel about that. When you knock a grown man out and they call him the winner, like the first Aljamain and Peter fight, that's not a loss in my eyes, right? But back to this. So Garrett fights that guy. He beat the shit out of that guy. There was some weird reffing where, the dude had him on the ropes. Ref kind of gives the dude a little bit of a break, and Armfield fucked up in that second round, but I'll give him credit. That was a fully locked in rear naked choke. That wasn't, any quick tapping or any quitting. He was dead to rights, but he looked really good early on in that fight. And then the Onama fight, you saw the size difference in that fight, bro. Onama's the guy that's going to
on short notice. Up a weight class.
When we say short notice, let's not, because 2 weeks and 3 weeks is considered short notice. He took this on Tuesday of fight week. That's the short notice we're dealing with. And he did pretty good in round 1, man. I think that, look, is Garrett a bit on the greener side? Yes, but I see potential. I see, areas of his game that, just give him a little bit more seasoning, a little bit more experience. and he could be a dangerous guy. He can win some fights in the UFC. And I even went back and I watched my breakdown of his fight with Onama, and I said, listen, he's not going to win this fight. It's going to be a tall order, but I do see this guy winning some fights in the UFC, and this is one of those fights I see him winning. I only have one concern in this fight, and that's Kazama submitting this guy. That's it. I'm not worried about anything else. I think on the feet, there's going to be a speed difference, an accuracy difference, a strike arsenal difference. I think that Garrett's not going to be easy to be taken down. I think he can get back up from bottom. But again, you know, I'm not going to look you in the eye with a straight face and tell you that if Kazama takes his back, then I'm not going to be fucking sweating, because I am. But Kazama is sub or bust. I got this at -147. It's looking like it's going to trend in the -175 to -200 range. So I beat the line, and let's let it ride. So to win 2 units on Garrett Armfield here.
Yeah, I mean, this is the one we're going opposites on, Dan. I took Kazama at +150. Everything you mentioned is actually accurate. I mean, there's nothing to.
What do you mean, actually? I'm just kidding.
It's accurate in the sense that there's one thing that you didn't mention that I took away from Armfield is why I bet Kazama as well. Armfield's, I love his striking, actually. He never throws one strike at a time. It's always 3, 4, 5, you know, bunch of strikes. And not that he has a lot of power in his hands. It's just that when you're throwing in combos, it's the 3rd, 4th, and 5th punch that hurts you. You know, the ones that you're not seeing. And he does that very, very well. You know, he's at Kill Cliff. He's fun, you know, he's
actually he left Kill Cliff. Now he's at the former gym of James Krause, which is now run by Trey Ogden.
Okay, thank you for that. I thought he was still at Kill Cliff. Okay, so when I go back and watch his fights, and you mentioned, I love, by the way, this is to preface everything with, I love Mateo Vogel as a prospect. He's a really, really good fighter. And that was a very good look for Armfield. And that was kind of bullshit where he got him hurt. And, you know, they kind of like separated a little. And then the ref is like, oh, hold on, let me give this guy his mouthpiece while the guy's wobbling back. Like, it's a terrible, terrible timing for him. And it's kind of bad luck. The issue I see with Armfield more than anything is this guy slows down a ton in the late rounds of round 2 and round 3. His gas tank really, really goes down badly. You could see it in the Slider fight where he won by split, which I don't think was a split, by the way. He won that fight pretty clear. But you see him slowing down there. You see him slowing down big time against Ronnie Lawrence in round 3. And, you know, this guy, and you see him in an Onama fight, but I don't want to put too much into that. It was short notice, up a weight class against a bigger guy. Now, Kazama is the type of guy that will, you know, his wrestling is not great. He's got actually pretty slick jiu-jitsu, but he keeps coming, and he has a very, very good gas tank. And I think that's partly why I played him here. Not because he has good wrestling, not because I think he's the better skilled fighter overall here, because I do think it's Armfield. But the problem that I see with Armfield over and over and over on tape is this guy slows down a bunch later in fights. And I kind of feel like against a guy that's going to bring a very, very heavy pace of grappling in Kazama, I do think Armfield needs to get this guy out of there pretty damn early. And if not, I think I see Kazama taking over in this fight. I see the grappling with a lot of success as this guy slows down, similar to some of these fights. So, you know, I got a shot on Kazama here, +150. I didn't like the way he runs into, like, he comes in very pressure heavy, like he's gonna knock dudes out. Like, dude, take it easy. You're not a striker. And he did that against Nakamura, and he decided to trade with him. And, you know, he went to sleep. And not that I think he would have any success in the grappling against Nakamura. It's just, you know, you're going up against a high-level wrestler. It was probably a terrible matchup for him in hindsight. So, yeah, I got me some Kazama here, +150, just for that main factor of, you know, this guy kind of slowing down against grapplers, and almost all of his losses are actually in the grappling and guys that have grappled him.
Yeah. So let's see, man. You're not into like the shoey bets and stuff like that, right?
Nah, I don't do shoeys, but we could do whatever else you want.
How about just the air handshake? May the best man win.
No, how about if you win? I got a good one. I got a good one. I have some nice posters. I'll let you choose. I have a bunch of them. You win a poster, you send me something else in return. Whatever. It doesn't matter.
All right. Air handshake.
Air handshake.
All right. Deal. All right. Next up in the middleweight division, this is a banger. We got Chidi and Njokuani. He's 22-9, taking on Lord Michal Oleksiejczuk, who's 18-6. Currently, they got it. Michal Oleksiejczuk -115, Chidi and Njokuani -105. So a pick 'em with a slight lean on Lord Michal. What a fight, because what's funny is that the big talking point is that Michal dropped to 85 his last few fights. He had no business at 205. But at 205, he still beat guys like Khalil Roundtree, and he was, had a real war with Dustin Jacoby where he won the first round. And, he was doing some good stuff there, but he's just way too small. And I had even said, like, yeah, this dude should drop to 85. But Mike, I think he could drop to 70s, because when you look at him and Chidi is going to be massively larger than this man. But I think the dynamic here is Michal with his insane pressure. He's going to be going forward. He's going to be backing Chidi up. He's going to be swinging big bungalows. And Chidi is going to have to kind of be on the more sniper side. Chidi's got insane feints. His kicks are heavy, big knees in the clinch. The biggest criticism throughout his career has been when you take this guy down, despite him actually being a black belt at this point, when you kind of put that pressure on him, he doesn't tend to get back up, but it's better than it used to be. Like, I don't know if you remember the Cortes fight back in Bellator. You compare that to some of the recent fights. Like, I know he pulled, he did empty out the tank against RoboCop, and it happened again. But I thought the Duraev fight, despite a losing effort, was a step in the right direction in terms of, he wasn't just getting dominated on the mat. I thought he clearly lost the first round. And then, man, that's a fight that, like, I've watched a couple different times, whether it was watching it live when it actually happened or going back and rewatching it when, what's his name? What's the Russian's name? Duraev. When he fought recently against Jung Park. Sometimes I go back and forth on who I thought won that fight. It was kind of up in the air. Bottom line, Chidi did not do what was required to really put a stamp on things, which sucks because the fight was in Texas. And Chidi is from there. So you thought they would have gave it to him, but nope. So his back's up against the wall. I mean, how do you kind of see it? Do you see the pressure of Michal kind of overwhelming Chidi? Do you think Chidi, with his sharpshooter sniper approach, can, catch him with something down the line, kind of like Dustin Jacoby did to Kennedy? Kennedy normally takes that first round off, and Kennedy uncharacteristically came out balls to the wall against Dustin Jacoby, and putting that pressure on him, he got sniped with something down the pipe. I could see something similar happening here if Chidi is to win this fight. If not, that pressure of Michal could overwhelm. But bottom line, I see heavy exchanges. I see someone hitting the deck, and I see this being one of the best fights or knockouts of the night.
Yeah, I just think Chidi's problem is he doesn't like pressure fighters, in my opinion. He doesn't like guys that are going to keep coming after him. They're going to zap his gas tank. He wants to be on the outside. He wants to use his kickboxing. He's very, very slick, very, very accurate with his punches and kicks, and very nasty in the clinch. The problem here is, like, Michal's just going to keep coming. This guy is a madman. The other problem for Chidi is Michal works the body a ton, man. He throws a lot of heavy body shots. And in a fight where it's going to get dirty, that's just how Michal makes every one of his fights. I think it's a bad thing for Chidi here. So I bet on Marc-Andre Barrios against Chidi in the same sense that I thought as the fight extended, Marc-Andre would eventually break him because he's a pressure forward guy, throws a bunch of body shots, very similar. But guess what happened? Chidi caught him very early and he went to sleep. So we didn't really get to see that iteration of that fight. It was an early knockout, sorry. And it could happen here again because Michal is very hittable when he comes forward. He's coming crashing in the pocket, throwing big overhands. And he is hittable. He is hittable with knees up the middle as well, because when he throws his overhands, he tends to throw them in ducking forward, like those big overhands where you could just eat a knee, a flying knee from Chidi, which I'm a little afraid of. But I think this is a good fight for Michal. I think he pressures forward. I think he works the body well. And I think Chidi's gas tank, even though he went 3 rounds last time, the problem is Duraev has just as bad of a gas tank, or even worse than Chidi does. So I think that helped them there. So I like Michal here. I'm waiting. People keep betting Chidi, so I'm just gonna wait as this line goes down, and I'm gonna try to hit Michal, hopefully at the bottom. Maybe I don't get the bottom, but I think eventually I'll get a bet in here on Michal. I like the pressure. I like the body work. And if I bet Marc-Andre Barriault for the same exact reasons, then there's no reason I should not be betting Michal here at a similar line.
So fight ends inside the distance is minus 280. And you guys know I'm not much of a prop guy, but let's have a little lesson in props here. If you come to the conclusion that someone's going to hit the deck, that these two are going to stand and bang until one man falls, well, Chidi inside the distance is plus 150, and Chidi by KO is plus 215. Oleksiejczuk inside the distance is plus 145. Oleksiejczuk by KO is plus 190. I mean, you can take both of those. Either guy wins by knockout, you're coming out with profit. The issue is that this becomes a 3-round war, then shit isn't going to go your way. But if you're damn confident that one of these guys is hitting the deck, play both of their KO props and guarantee yourself a profit there. I also lean towards Michal because I know that pressure style has always historically given Chidi issues throughout his career, but I can't act, like it's some lock or like I'm super confident, because Chidi is a sniper. Chidi does have devastating knees, straight punches, and when there's no takedown threat, that's when Chidi feels more comfortable, and that's when he really feels like he can let his hands go. And when we pull up Michal's numbers, okay, so Michal Oleksiejczuk has landed a grand total, more than I thought, 3 takedowns in his UFC career, which is $11 fights. 3 takedowns and 11 fights. 311, one of my favorite bands. But 3 takedowns and 11 fights. So chances are, you never know, right? You really never know, because we have seen weaknesses there for both guys. So maybe one of them wants to throw, bring that ace up, their back pocket, up their sleeve and hit a takedown. But I think that both of them are going to be kind of relieved by the fact that, hey, there's not much of a takedown threat here. These guys are each guy's going to give me the kind of fight I want. Let's let them fly. The only concern is sometimes when you get 2 very dangerous strikers, they will show each other a lot of respect. The thing is, with Michal's fighting style, he doesn't show anybody respect. So that's why I think someone's hitting the deck. I'm going to go Michal, but I still really think Michal could fight at 170. So it's not a confident pick. I just slightly lean his way. And I think the odds indicate that it's a slight lean towards his way. So not much value in my eyes, but pure pick, I will go with Michal. Now, this next one I have a bet on. Next up in the welterweight division, we got Keenan Song. He's 19-7, taking on Rolando Bedoya, who's 14-2. And currently, they got it. Rolando Bedoya minus 325. The comeback on Keenan Song is plus 260. So I took Rolando at minus 225 about a week or two ago. And, so I take it at minus 225. And then the next day, the line's already moved to minus 240, minus 250. And I see all these people posting minus 225 tickets. I'm like, dude, that line hasn't been available in a while. Like, you think you're slick? Like, I see what you're doing, guys, but that line moved 24 hours after I made that bet. But let me tell you why I'm taking this spot. Longtime listeners of Half the Battle know one of my favorite angles is guys that can double or triple people up on strikes, on output. I love that angle all day. And just to make my point in case here, Mike, in round 3 of the Chaos Williams fight, in round 3, okay, just round 3, In round 3 of the Chaos Williams fight, Rolando Bedoya landed more strikes than Keenan Song has landed in any UFC fight he's had. Okay? So basically what I'm trying to say here is that Keenan Song can only win this fight in one way, by knockout. He's got heavy hands. We can't deny it. Big left hook, big straight right. We understand that. I mean, I guess a decision path would be he's getting out volumed and then he lands a big knockdown at the end of the round. That you know, but basically what I'm saying is Keenan Song's success is predicated on knockdowns, nothing else. I'm not worried about Keenan Song's volume. I'm not worried about Keenan Song's takedowns. The only concern is this guy flooring us. And a lot of people are planting their flag saying that Bedoya got robbed against Chaos. I'm not one of those people. I mean, I could see a case for both. I think it could go either way. Like when I've watched that fight, I'm like, I see the argument for both. I know that the commentators were pretty sure Bedoya won the fight. All the fans are sure Bedoya won the fight. But for me, I just thought it was a very competitive, hard-nosed fight that could have gone either way. So I don't care about planting my flag on who won that fight. That's irrelevant to me. The only thing that's relevant here is what I just told you, Mike, is that in round 3 against Chaos, this man landed more strikes than any fight Keenan Song's had. So this fight goes the distance, and you look at that box score, I mean, we're doubling or tripling this guy up on strikes. I beat the line by $1 or more already. I'm pretty happy with my position here. I mean, I could go hedge out and guarantee myself a profit, but I'm riding this one out. I think Keenan Song is on his way out. I think that he took ungodly punishment his last 2 fights. And the Gary fight, he dropped Ian Gary. I think Ian Gary was a little bit arrogant in that spot. I think it was target practice. He was getting a little bit carried away. He got caught with a perfect left hook. And listen, like I said, Keenan can crack. If we're going to give Keenan credit for something, the man can crack. But that's all he can do. Like I said, I'm not worried about his volume. I'm not worried about his takedowns. I'm not worried about him being tougher than Bedoya. And what I think Bedoya is going to be doing here is Bedoya is going to be getting off on that volume. And I love his head movement. I think he's going to land 3 punches and then, slip out the way of that big counter left hook. He does have nice head movement. He's got a fantastic chin, the volume, like I already mentioned. And on his regional scene, he was finishing guys via submission, via knockout. And what was interesting, Mike, was that I thought Bedoya could actually drop to 55s, but that was in his regionals. Once I saw him in the UFC, I was like, okay, maybe I was off about that. Maybe this guy really is a welterweight. But bottom line, I just think heart, balls, mental fortitude, and most importantly, nonstop output is what's going to get this kid the win. I don't blame y'all for passing here at -3 something, -370 in some spots, but at the -225 I thought there was value there, and I played it to win 2 units. So let's get it.
Yeah, I agree with you. -225 is a great line, but -370, you just it's getting out there. This is recency bias. I mean, giving him -370. The kid, what'd you say? Heart, balls, mental fortitude, right? What gym is that?
Yeah, exactly. Shoot the Bucks.
All those guys have those exact attributes in that gym, man. They literally do. And he's literally fits to a T, exactly like all these other guys. A lot of heart. Their chin is, good. Durability. They keep coming. They throw a ton of volume. And he has all those attributes. And it was a good look for him against Chaos Williams. I thought he edged that went out, to be honest. It was close because the bigger shots were coming from Chaos, but I thought Bedoya actually won that fight. But again, it was a close fight. This was not a robbery like some people call them. Robbery gets thrown around like it's high and by nowadays. So I don't think it was a robbery, but it was a good look for Bedoya. The thing that sticks out a lot, and I go to this a lot in my tape, and I love body shots. That's one. And I love calf kicks too. Those are major weapons in MMA. We've seen the calf kick over and over again become a major weapon. And Bedoya throws a ton of calf kicks. And you know what Keenan Song does very bad, Dan? He can't check a single calf kick, man. He got killed by Ian Gary. He got killed by
Max Griffin.
Max Griffin. He got killed by Alex Morono. All these guys kept nailing him to the calf, and he just literally doesn't know what to do. And he's so heavy because he's constantly looking for that check left hook that he throws, and it's a very heavy left hook. So when you're throwing that punch, you need to be heavy on that lead leg, and he's heavy on that lead leg, and he gets kicked off a lot. And Bedoya has very, very good calf kicks, just like all the shoot to box guys. And I think that's going to be a major weapon in this fight, to be honest. I mean, Chaos Williams ate a lot of calf kicks, man. He's a tough SOB, and we know that. I mean, Chaos Williams, you need to freaking put that guy literally on a stretcher for him to get out of that ring, for you to get him out of there. He's just not going to quit. And, it's a major issue for Kenan Song here. The volume is a major issue. Like you said, I truly believe it's KO or bust here. But I also think this line's kind of getting a little crazy, because if there's one thing that he has, it's a ton of power. And the thing that he has that's a little different than Chaos is he's a little bit more technical, right? He's a little bit more technical in the boxing. Chaos is exactly that. He throws chaos. He's throwing big overhands, wide looping shots. This guy's a little more technical when it comes to the counter striking and stuff like that. So I do think he's live for a knockout, albeit that Bedoya has shown a great chin. I did see him get dropped in the regional fight against, let me get the name of this dude, Otaloro, whatever. He got dropped in round 1 of that fight, but I mean, he recovered pretty damn quick. So if I'm going to give you a side, it's Bedoya here. I do think he wins. I think the calf kick is a major weapon for him here. And the chin on Kenan Song. I mean, we have to talk about it, man.
The confidence too.
Yeah, the way Max Griffin slept this guy, it was not a very good look. And Max Griffin has decent power in his hand, but he just doesn't sleep people, right? He drops them, he doesn't sleep them, and he slept this guy against the cage there. So it is a little bit of a concern. I like the Bedoya side here. I do think he wins, but I wouldn't touch that money line right now. You have a great price.
Another thing, just a last little tidbit. So the kid does train in Brazil, but he's Peruvian. And I mentioned it yesterday. Peruvian MMA is on the up. 5 years ago, Peruvian MMA was a laughing stock in the UFC. I mean, you remember Jesus Pinedo, he actually fought in the UFC and they cut him after one loss. And there were a bunch of other guys that, like, what's the name of that kid? Bandone. There were a bunch of dudes that were just shitting the bed. But now look at Jesus Pinedo now. Look at the two Peruvians they signed on Contender Series. This kid, Bedoya, like Enrique Barzola, the OG, Peruvian MMA is on the up. So you love to see how, it's just developed so much in the last 5 years, because it used to be a case. And like, let's date back to 8 years ago, right? Where Australian MMA used to be a laughing stock. It used to be like, oh, he's an Australian grappler, right? Now, like, these Australian grapplers are no fucking jokes anymore. Like, it's just beautiful to see the evolution of the sport in all these countries, Peru, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So yeah, I listen, at the end of the day, I beat the line by more than $1. It's my output angle. I already read you the stats, and I'm not going back on my word now. I'm not going to hedge out, and may the best man win. So
he's got a great chin too. I think that's a big factor for him here. Like, yes. It's good to have a chin against a guy like Song.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, next up in the welterweight division, we got the return of Japanese Connor, Yusaku Kinoshita. He's 6-2, but between you and me, 7-1, because one of his losses, he knocked the dude out senseless with stomps. But it wasn't the stomps that got him DQ'd. He was grabbing the fence while stomping the dude. But as far as I'm concerned, he's 7-1, because like we were talking about earlier, when you knock a grown man out and they call him the winner, I'm sorry, but where I'm from, that does not make you the winner. He's taking on Billy Goff, who's 8-2. Currently, they got it Yusaku Kinoshita -130. The comeback on Billy Goff is +110. So firstly, I'm kind of embarrassed because I pride myself on getting the best of the number 9 times out of 10. That's something that's very important to me. To be a long-term winning gambler, you have to make sure you get the best of the line to minimize your losses and maximize your wins. That's just the bottom line, because all those little 0.2s and 0.3s you lay when you're talking about juice might not seem a lot on one bet, but when you add it up over a large sample size, it sure as fuck adds up. So when I played Yusaku at minus 150 and now I see a minus 130, yeah, I'm kind of pissed off about that. It's cool that I beat Bedoya by over $1. I beat the Armfield line by like 30 cents or something like that. But here, this is one of the rare occasions where I didn't get the best of it. So I'm kind of pissed off about that. But back to this. So I bet Yusaku Kinoshita in his debut against Adam Fugit, and obviously he shit the bed that night. It was a terrible performance, and I've learned from the past. A lot of fans of Half the Battle know exactly what examples I'm about to mention right now. When I bet Taila Santos at minus 150 against Mara Romero Barella, and she just stared at her, right? And like when you came out of that fight, did you come out thinking, oh, Mara Romero Barella is this title challenger? Or did you just view it as, wow, like Taila froze up and didn't fight? Like, because you saw a couple fights later, Taila arguably dethroned Valentina. You know what I'm saying? So it's what we like to refer to as a debut stunt. A few fights later, Daniel Zellhuber fought Trey Ogden, right? And, he did the same thing. He stared at Trey Ogden for 3 rounds. Coming out of that fight, did you think, oh man, Trey Ogden's going to be this big time contender? No, you thought Daniel Zellhuber pulled that debut stunt. And the mistake I made with Taila was I held it against her. So then her next fight against Molly McCann, I was like, oh yeah, I'm definitely betting Molly against this girl who, the lights were too bright for her. The lights weren't too bright. She just pulled her debut stunt. But I didn't make that mistake with Danielle Zellhuber. I went back to the well against Lando Venata, and I trusted my original reads, which led me to believe the kid was a real prospect based on his regional footage. And I'm willing to give Japanese Connor a second chance. Now, if he fucks this up, I'm completely done with him. But I was really impressed with this guy's regional footage with his Contender Series fight. Look, he pulled his debut stunt. And like I said, if he does that again here, I'm done with him. But I'm willing to give this kid one more chance, because I thought he was special going into that Fugit fight, man. His pull counters, his athleticism. He's one of the better Japanese fighters I've seen in years. Nasty knockouts. Some of the best highlight reel knockouts I've seen on the regional scene in a long, long time. And the kid, Billy Goff, I mean, the guy's a dog. You got to give him respect. It seems like dudes named Billy just happen to be dogs. Billy Q, Bill Algeo. Like, I don't know what it is, but these dudes named Billy, they might not be the most athletic. They might get dropped like in the first round every fight. But man, if you can't get them out of there, they will just keep coming. And man, when they get on top of you and they put that pressure on you, they break guys. So yeah, there's stuff we're concerned about, of course. Like, I'm not going to look you in the eye with a straight face and tell you, oh, if Billy gets in full mount and starts dropping big elbows, that I'm going to be like, oh, we're going to be fine. Let's just wait till the next round. Yeah, of course, I'm going to be worried about certain situations. But Billy Goff is a guy that gets dropped every single fight. Granted, he tends to recover, but at what point is he going to take his KO loss? Like, look, even Billy Q had to take his KO losses, and I'm not even just referring to Edson Barboza. Go watch his fight against Michel Quinones on the regional scene when he got head kick knocked out. The right shot is going to put you out. This man is super hittable. Yes, I'm worried about the dogfight, but I'm giving Japanese Connor a second chance here. I'm chalking it down to a debut stunt, and if he proves me wrong and turns out he truly is a fraud, then it was just a bad read on my part. But I'm giving the kid a second chance, and I played him to win 2 units here.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of thought the same exact thing you thought. I mean, I thought this guy was really special, very, very hard hitter, very explosive, showed that he can go 3 rounds and still knock somebody out in the third in that Contender Series. And even in that fight, man, I mean, he landed some massive shots, and that Brazilian was tough as nails, man, like really, really tough. Very awkward fight for him, too. I mean, that guy was like 6'5" or something. I mean, really, really tall. And we know how hard it is. I mean, that's very hard to deal with, especially when you're a young guy. like Kinoshita and him fighting in Japan, he's fighting all these guys that are similar size or maybe even smaller than him. Now he's fighting this dude in Contender Series, and the dude is like 6'5", and it's like, how do I fight this guy? But no, he didn't show any ill effects. Like he went out there, landed some clean shots, knew how to land the leg kick, and he looked really good there. Then he comes out against Fugit, and the main concern I had with this guy is, how does he look when he gets taken down? What does he look like when he's on the ground? Because we don't have any footage of him on his back. And that was my main concern with this guy. I didn't know what he was going to look like. And I knew that Adam Fugit was actually pretty good on the ground. He has, believe he has a black belt. He's had decent wrestling, so that was my concern for him. And I think I had a bet on Adam Fugit there at a plus like 280 price tag just because of that, Dan. Not because I thought that, Kinoshita couldn't knock him out or anything, but I needed him to prove me that he can actually grapple some. He knows what to do when he's on his back. And honestly, he did not look very good when he was getting taken down there. He looked kind of like beat already. I don't know, like going back and watching a fight, it was like he was already like beat when he was getting taken down. And I didn't like that look. But I do think exactly what you said. Billy Goff literally gets dropped or hurt in every single one of his fights in round one. He's a tough guy. He comes back. But like, you don't want to get caught like that against a guy like Kinoshita, because I think he does have finishing instincts. I think he's very vicious when he has you hurt. He wants to get you out of there. And I think this is a play where I'm probably going to play Kinoshita round one KO, or even a money line pre, into something like a live bet on Billy Goff if he survives, because I do think it's going to get hairy for him early. But as the fight plays on, I think he's the type of guy that does have dog in him. I do think that he's going to come forward and try to even wrestle some here. In his Instagram, he's been wrestling a bunch of late, whatever it may be. He's been in wrestling rooms and all types of wrestling. So I don't know if that's his game plan here. I think if he's smart, that would be the game plan here, and not try to strike with Kinoshita. The thing I do like with Kinoshita is now he's been at Killcliff for about almost a year now. Yes, he lost his last fight while training at Killcliff, but now it's another 28 weeks where he's at Killcliff. It just helps out, man. Like, he's been in Japan training. This guy's still 22, 23. So he's a sponge, man. He's probably learning on the fly, learning a bunch. So I do like those looks from him. I might get on him on a money line, because this line seems to keep dropping. So maybe I get on a money line here if it drops enough, and possibly, look to live bet out of it if he doesn't finish this fight early.
Yes, sir. Japanese Connor season. Let's go. Get back on track, kid. And hopefully he does it. Next up in the flyweight division, we got Na Liang. She's 19-6, taking on JJ Aldrich, who's 11-6. Currently, they got it JJ minus 575. The comeback on Na Liang's plus 410. I mean, listen, obviously, I'm not laying a price like this on JJ. She shot the bed at prices like this in the past. Look at the Ariane Lipsky fight. And they are such polar opposites in their approach. JJ kind of wants to be on the outside, have that kind of pretty fight where she doesn't take too much damage and she can kind of parry you, run away, pot shot or whatnot, mixing the occasional takedown. Whereas Na Liang is just going to run right at her, balls to the wall, kill or be killed. Either she gets you out of there or she gets finished herself. I haven't really thought that Na Liang's on the UFC level at all. But the price is everything, and the price is trash. So it's either a pass, or you hope that JJ Aldrich is jet lagged, that time of the month, got into a fight with her boyfriend that's like 40 years older than her. And maybe it's just not her night at 5 a.m. in Singapore. But yeah, all that aside, I think JJ should win this fight, as the line indicates, but you will not catch me dead laying no chalk on JJ Aldrich in a UFC fight, period.
Yeah, I mean, this is a bathroom break for me. I don't know. Na Liang is not UFC level. Let's put it that way. She comes in with her she's looking at the ceiling when she's throwing punches. She doesn't have a chin. She doesn't know if she's a 25 or 15. She's up and down between flyweight and strawweight. you know, and then the other side is like, do you want to lay this type of price with JJ Aldrich, who's already pulled a stunt her last time out, you know, as a minus 400 favorite? Like, no, thank you. I'm not touching this. I'm just going to pass, man. I don't even think there's value on Na Liang, even though, you know, we kind of feel like it's dog or pass. She's just not good, man. She's doesn't do anything really good, to be honest. She can't wrestle. She can't strike. She has a terrible chin. Yeah, it's just a pass for me. If you know, I'm gonna take the winner is JJ Aldrich, but never playing that price on her.
And last but not least, kicking off the card in the featherweight division, we got Sung Woo Choi. He's 10-6, taking on Jarno Aarons, who's 13-4-1. Currently, they got it Sung Woo Choi minus 170. The comeback on Jarno Aarons is plus 140. So Sung Woo Choi is an interesting cat because he comes into the UFC and you know, he's been fighting all these bums on his regional scene, and then they're like, here's Movsar Evloev, you know what I mean? And then right after that, here's Gavin Tucker, you know. But then they gave him a couple step downs in competition, took care of the Mokhtarian guy, beat Yusuf Zalal, which at the time was a big win, knocked out Julian Erosa in the first round. So we're like, okay, he's bounced back. And then the Alex Caceres fight, like you were alluding to earlier, drops him in that first round. And it's looking like, hey, kid, a couple follow-ups. You're about to get the biggest win of your career. And then he decided to go full pride, rules on him, knees him in the face, gives Alex all that time to recover. Alex, to his credit, gets back in the fight, takes his back, chokes him out. And man, Sung Woo hasn't been the same since. Now, in that Josh Kulabau fight, he showed a tremendous amount of heart, but he took a tremendous amount of damage. You know, he got knocked down twice in that fight. I have no idea how that fight was a split decision, but I remember watching that fight, and then the fight was on a Saturday, going back to the gym on a Monday, and my professor was like, man, that Korean kid just refused to die. Like he was like, never say die, just like in Pride, man. It was crazy, like the kind of heart he showed. But then against Trezano, which also seemed like a bit of a winnable fight, he's a minus 180 favorite in that spot. And we're talking double knockdowns. We're talking, I mean, I enjoy watching fights like that. It's just when you're talking about getting my money down, you know, how much chin does Sung Woo Choi have left? How much confidence does he have left? Because I do think he's a good athlete. I do think he's a heavy hitter. I do think he's got, you know, some decent experience. And then on the other side with Jarno, you know, he's he's from the Netherlands. And he's kind of one of these guys that he's a bit of a low output kickboxer, but not the best takedown defense. But then he is kind of, he will surprise you at times with some of his submission attempts. Like that third round against Gomes, man, that triangle choke was deep. Props to Gomes. Like that, his defense was so on point to get out of that. And you've seen in some of these other fights that this kid's had, he's got guillotines, Darce chokes. You know, I got affinities for those, man. You know, I have a soft spot in my heart for the guillotines and the Darces. So I respect it. I'm just not sure, like, what to think. Is this kind of a good bounce back for Sung Woo Choi? Is he damaged goods at this point? And where exactly do we rank or rate Jarno Aarons? So I kind of want to hear what you have to say about this one because I'm on the fence.
Yeah, I'm on the fence right there with you, man. I actually like Yarno's submission game, man. Like he throws a ton of different submissions, even on his regional tape against these Russian wrestlers. Like he's putting them in terrible spots where they don't even want to be on top of him. Pretty surprised, like to see that this guy is a little bit more of a high level grappler, but he's not. Like I think he's either a blue or purple belt, but like he shows a lot of submissions even on his regional tape, and we saw him get, like you said, that triangle was really deep. If it wasn't for this guy having a lot of sweat probably on his head, being in the third round to slip his head out, he probably goes to sleep there, but he managed to get his head out of there because it was wet, you know, his third round, slippery. But I mean, it was a slick submission on his part. And on the feet, you mentioned he's kind of low volume. He does tend to throw with decent power and he pressures forward a lot. I just don't know with Choi, man. Like 4 knockdowns in the last 2 fights. Is he damaged goods? Like what's going on here? Like this guy's getting dropped every time by this same exact punch, the left hook. He never sees that left hook. Dan, when he's throwing, like you could see, he every single time he's dropping his right hand. And when he throws his right hand, he never brings it back to his chin. He always drops it. So people counter him with the left hook every single time. And he just doesn't see it. And he gets clipped by it. And you know, Jarno's a kickboxer. So I'm pretty sure he sees it on tape. I'm pretty sure he sees that, you know, Choi has that really big, like, mistake that he makes with that right hand. Like he drops it over and over again. And the one thing that I don't like with Choi that he tends to do a lot is when he gets hurt, and he just wants to bite down on that mouthpiece and throw haymakers back. And I just don't think that's a good idea when your chin is not very good. You know, he did the same thing against Trezano. He gets knocked out. You know, he did the same thing against Kulabao. He gets knocked down. You know, it's like, dude, your chin is not good. Stop doing this to yourself, you know? And that's where I have a problem here, you know? Like, who do I think is more skilled? I do think Choi is the much more skilled fighter here, to be honest. I just don't trust his chin. And there's a lot of data to suggest that, you know, his chin might be shot here at this point. And, you know, he left, I think he was either at ATT or Killcliff. He left there. He's back with Korean Zombie. I'm just going to pass here. If I'm to take a winner, I lean Choi because I think he's the better mixed martial artist. But I also kind of concerned that he's damaged goods at this point.
Yeah, same concerns. It's such a tough fight for me to call. I don't know what to expect from Choi. You know, also, let's say Choi doesn't want to bang with this kickboxer. Let's say he wants to take him down. We know Yarno doesn't have the best takedown defense, but we also know Choi, you know, you get him in submissions, and not to discredit the guys that have submitted him. You know, Gavin Tucker, a black belt, Alex Caceres, true fucking seasoned vet. I'm sure he's probably a black belt too, but there wasn't much resistance. They were kind of quick taps. I don't know. I'm a lean Choi, but I just don't want to lay a price on him. And, you know, sometimes these guys, like I said, look better in their second UFC appearances. You know, maybe Yarno didn't really show all he could do in that first fight. Maybe he looks better here. I just have no idea. And usually when I have no idea, I take the dog, but it's like I have no idea to a point where like I really don't know how good Yarno really is, whereas I know how good Choi can be. I also know how bad Choi can be, but I know how good he can be on his best day. So I'm going to lean with Choi, but it's not a confident pick. And, you know, unless someone has a strong read, I'd advise most likely staying away from this fight. Now, Mike, before we get out of here, we got to talk about the fight to watch and the fighter to watch. And everybody watching, we sincerely appreciate you guys being here. Please do me a big favor and hit the like button. If you're not subscribed, please subscribe. And when this is over, leave me a comment. I really appreciate y'all when you do that. And if you feel so inclined, feel free to share. Now, Mike, what is the fight to watch for UFC Singapore?
I think it's got to be that Blanchfield Santos fight. I think that's an extremely interesting fight. I think it's kind of, you know, not kind of, it is the biggest test for Blanchfield, right? Like is this girl it, right? And we're going to probably find out in this fight here because Santos is very skilled. She's a very, very good striker. She's a good grappler. You know, everything that you need to see here is she has it. And we're going to see just how, you know, if this girl Blanchfield does have the it factor. And I think she does, honestly. I think she has the it factor. And I can't wait for that fight, actually. You know, and for me, I'm not a big WMMA guy, but this is a high-level fight with two high-level fighters. And I'm looking forward to that fight. I'm kind of surprised it's not all the way up there when it comes to, you know, this card, because I wanted to see it all the way up there, maybe even as the co-main.
I'm going to give you two fights to watch. First one is a no-brainer. Chidi and Njokuani versus Michal Oleksiejczuk. Anytime you get two dangerous strikers like that and they don't have a threat of a takedown and you know they're going to let it go, I mean, how can that not be one of the fights to watch? There's a high likelihood that this fight ends in very violent fashion. And that's what the fans want to see, especially at 5 a.m. And also Japanese Connor versus Billy Goff, man. Like I want to see if Japanese Connor is really that prospect I thought he was going into the UFC. I'm willing to give him that second chance. And Billy Goff is no pushover. Billy Goff is a dog. Billy Goff is going to bite down on that mouthpiece. So he's going to give Yusaku Kinoshita that, that litmus test he needs to show like, kid, are you ready or not? So for that reason, those are my fights to watch. Now, Mike, who is your fighter to watch for UFC Singapore?
Yeah, the fighter to watch for me here is probably going to be the guy you mentioned. I want to see Kinoshita in his comeback here. I want to see some improvements as far as the grappling is concerned. I mean, like I said, he's in a good gym now. I want to see a little more improvement there. And I think that's the guy I want to keep my eye on, because I do think, probably came into that first fight and anybody can shit the bed on their first fight in the UFC. We see it over and over and over again. And this is going to tell me, what this guy's future is like, to be honest. Like, if he can't pass this test, then he's probably not going to be in the UFC for very long. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing what he has here in his second fight in the UFC.
Yeah, and for me, I'm going to go Rolando Bedoya. Listen, man, this guy put up ridiculous numbers in his debut against a massive step up in competition compared to the guys he was fighting on the regional scene. And he's someone that got people talking, got people excited about his next fight. People thought he got robbed against Chaos Williams, and now he does have to fly halfway across the world, but he got a big step down and a winnable fight. And if he passes this test like I think he's going to, then he's going to elevate his stock even more. It's going to be another exciting fight after that. And just his camp in general, like you alluded to with the Charles Oliveira's, with the Daniel Willie Cat Santos. There's a bunch of other guys in their camp coming up too, man. Alan Nascimento, right? Like he could be the next big prospect coming out of Shoot to Box Brazil. So Shoot to Box Diego Lima. So for that reason, Rolando Bedoya is my fighter to watch. Well, Mike, we did it. It's going down this Saturday morning for us, live in Singapore. Two legends, Holloway and the Korean Zombie, plus a bunch of really intriguing matchups. I can't wait for it. The fans can follow you at Narco Cop or Narco Cop MMA?
At Narco Cop on Twitter.
Narco Cop on Twitter. Anything else? What else you want to plug? Plug it all.
Narco Cop MMA on YouTube. Every Friday, Lambo Place podcast with my co-host Timothy Troiano. And I do a live spaces every Saturday on Twitter for every live card. But I don't know about this one, man. I don't know. 2 a.m. start time here. I might not have a live spaces for this one. But Dan, thanks for having me. And shout out to the chat for being here.
Yeah. Oh, thanks for coming on, man. It was an absolute pleasure. As always, y'all make sure you follow this man. And then for all the fans that have the battle, thank you so much for all your support. Truly means a lot. Please hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already. When this is over, leave me that comment. And if you feel so inclined, please share. Technique of the week dropping Friday. I'll be back next week. I'll announce it now with Liam Picks Fights to break down the UFC Paris card. And until the next time, let's cash these bets.